So the three areas are SEO. What does that stand for? Does anyone know?
Search engine optimization.
It does stand for search engine optimization, thank you. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means in a moment. And SMM, it's not rude. You only know the rude stuff. It's social media marketing. Emails. There's been some sort of talk about emails may have had their day. Emails may be on the way out. And actually I understand that to a certain point, but I think if you use it intelligently, it's a great way of provoking action to take place on something like social media, or it helps to push people through to your website. So we're going to touch briefly at the end about how you can use email effectively as well to increase your chances of getting new customers, but also to nurture relationships with existing customers. And one of the best things about digital marketing is the fact that it is measurable. There are measurements you can put in place for traditional marketing, but digital has got measurements sort of built into it. And we're going to briefly look at some of those measurements for your website, and we'll definitely be touching on it when it comes to emails and social media. So, search engine optimization, SEO. Tell me what you think that means. Any suggestions?
Making your company website more visible to search engines.
Absolutely. Make the site more visible.
Has that got to do with the keywords
Mm-hmm.
that you have to choose for your business?
So say that again.
The keywords.
Yeah. So the keywords you choose for your business,
Yeah.
you say? Okay. Very important. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. What else?
Google Analytics.
Google Analytics? And in what way do you think, is it related?
Anytime I hear from Google, it's to tell me how many visitors I've had and the kind of places they've come from.
So it's sort of, what you're using there is to sort of judge how well this is performing for you, how well your website is doing in the search engines. That's sort of what you... Yeah, cool, excellent. What else? The one that most people usually say in these seminars is to get to #1 on Google. So that is the first step, and then the objective is to be at the top of Google. And the keywords is an important element, because what we're talking about here we're talking about the end goal, or being #1 is the end goal. Here we're talking about how we judge how we're getting there. And this is the bit that is actually the first step on your journey for search engine optimization. What you've got to do is get into the minds of your customers and your potential customers. You need to understand what they type into the search engines. So, in the context of this conversation, a keyword is what your customers are literally typing into the search engines, what they're looking for. Sometimes in marketing you think about buzzwords and hot words and think they call them different things, but basically it's the thing that triggers the thought in the mind of the consumer. And then once you know what those are, in order for your site to be found via Google, when somebody types that in, you have to get the keywords in the right places on your website. And that is search engine optimization. Knowing what words to use and knowing where to put them. So I made a statement which most people, and the reaction to that question by in most seminars is that we want to be at #1 in Google. And one of the questions that then immediately comes to mind is, do we really need to be #1? Can we not be #2 or 3 or 4? Just somewhere on the first page would be nice. Well, actually, yes, somewhere on the first page is better than not being found at all. However, this graph shows us that if this is the share of available clicks after a search is made in Google, and this is the position the website occupied when the results came up, it shows that the website in position 1 got about 37% of the clicks, whereas the website in position 2 got somewhere near a 12 or 13%. So it's a huge, and obviously it goes down and down and down. So it's hugely beneficial to be number one because you will get significantly more traffic if you are at number one. So we would like to be there. The trouble with that is it's very difficult if you're in a competitive market in particular. Because if you're the only person that does this wonderful thing, then nobody else is going to be competing for it. You can occupy the space. But for most of you, you're going to be in an industry where you do have lots of competitors. So for example, if we looked online right now, let's have a search phrase like large format printing, we've got 15 million results. If you want to be number one, you've got a lot of work to do. Okay? So perhaps we need to narrow down the pool a bit. Maybe we need a smaller pool to try and be number one in. And one of the things that might happen is somebody might add a geographic reference to their search. So they know they're actually looking for a local company rather than just anybody in the UK. In which case they may add the town so that they can get somebody closer. And now we've got 305,000, a much more achievable task. Still a lot, but much more achievable than millions and millions. The trouble you've got right now, after me saying that, is you don't know yet whether your customers are typing in a geographic reference or not, and so you need to go and find out. So one of your tasks is to find out what phrases, what terminology, and whether or not we can find a phrase that we can compete for where there's not quite so much competition. Because then we'll be number one, and then we can actually get lots of traffic. I also specifically said number one in Google. In the UK, what percentage of search traffic do you think goes through Google?
75%.
70? 75?
98.
98? You're closer. In February 2012, it's the only one I have the actual data for, so the only one I can create a graph from, 92%. It does go up and down, waxes and wanes slightly month on month, but it's been around 90% for about 18 months at least. A few years ago it was lower and it just eked up and up. Now it's huge dominance. It's an incredible dominance. It's unheard of. Anywhere else in the world they do not have quite the same penetration. Even in America, talking about 55 to 60% of the traffic goes through Google. So yes, they're the biggest player, but they're so not quite as much control over the market as they do here. Microsoft Bing, and often if you buy a Windows laptop, the default search engine is set to Bing. And then Yahoo, which has a relationship with BT, and again, if you're a BT home user in particular, often that takes you directly to a Yahoo search page. And then Ask is hanging on in there after all these years. So yes, it's Google that we care about. In search engine terms, if you satisfy Google, then you are also likely to satisfy the other search engines as well, because all the search engines are doing, all that they want to do is provide really good results to the users. They want to find the most relevant, the most interesting, and the most useful pages to present back to somebody after the results, after a search, sorry. And because it's very people-centric, all of the search engines follow a similar pattern. How they judge it differs a bit, so their algorithms are slightly different from one another.